All right, it is time for our daily dose of wisdom. Go ahead and flip over to January 6th. The title of this is A God of Mercy. The verse comes from Psalms chapter 6, verses 1 or 2 in the NIV translation. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. Psalm 6 is a somewhat mysterious plea for yeah. Psalm 6 is a somewhat mysterious plea for God's mercy. Mysterious because it's not clear why David feels as though he's under God's heavy hand of discipline. What is clear is that David was miserable and desperately needed to hear from his God. Perhaps you can relate. Perhaps you've had that sense of inner turmoil, that feeling that something isn't quite right between you and the Lord. When you're in that place, it's good to do as David did, cry out to God for mercy. By the end of Psalm 6, David feels the deep sense of inner joy of a man who is assured that his gracious, forgiving God has heard and acted on his prayer for mercy. The Lord has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be overwhelmed with shame and anguish. They will turn back and suddenly be put to shame. Then 9 through 10. I know I have multiple times um, related to that. Um, I have begged for mercy on multiple occasions through many of the trials that I have been through. I have been definitely faint. My bones have been in agony. There has been a ton of situations that I can equate to that. Some, maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but most, not so much. Um, I am glad that I have always constantly turned to God for relief. That's always been a good thing. When I've not been trying to fix it myself, which is usually the reason why I'm pushing against that and not going by what he wants and ending up hurting myself for whatever reason. Not physically or anything like that, but in those moments, sometimes the silence can be deafening. You may not understand, why. One of the questions I get from people who are like on the edge of believing, or even some people who think that they're being more atheist when in reality the image of Christianity they were given was wrong, and they actually are more Christian than the people that they believe are Christian. Um, uh, Probably the biggest question I usually get is, if God is so good, how could he let a child die? And anybody who's gone through something like that, it is a very, very scary thing. I have not been through that, so I can only imagine the pain that I would be going through, but I know that I would be in a lot of pain. And sometimes we can think, what did I do, Lord? Why would you punish me with such a horrible thing? Even I remember one point I can say with me where I really hit that point was there was a point in time with my son where everything was completely out of my control, and he was very upset, and he left me a voicemail, crying out for me, and there was no way for me to physically be there. And I remember that tore me up pretty good. And I remember I hit the floor and I was, you know, punching at the ground, and I was like, Lord, you can hurt me all you want to, you can punish me, you can do whatever, but don't punish my kid. He does not deserve to be going through this. And that moment felt like every bit of my body was in pain. But when I did reach out to God in this moment, he did actually, it was silent. It was very silent, very deafening, and it was a very hard time for me to make sure I leaned in with 100% faith and 0% doubt. It was hard for me to lean not on my own understanding because the only thing I could understand was that I was wronged, my son was wronged, and there was nothing I could do. There was a test of faith that happened in that moment. And thankfully, I was close, but I kept my faith. And I knew God would get us through it. And he did hear my cry for mercy. After that test of faith I had, I prayed for my son to be essentially have all feelings of negative feelings taken out of his body, for him to be protected whenever I wasn't there, and for my heart to forgive and be healed during that moment. And I prayed that my heart, no matter how much I had to face in the future, that my heart would never want to turn away from the Lord again. And even though we are still going through some trials around that, I can be there for my son, whereas I couldn't before. God heard my prayer, He accepted my prayer, and He answered my prayer. The enemies did turn back. They felt the weight of what they had done, and God worked the biggest miracle I've ever seen in my life. He helped them through their shame, and He restored what needed to be restored. We may be going through trials, but we have to be thankful that we can ask for mercy, and that He does provide mercy. Because without it, I would not have anywhere near the level of connection that I have with the Lord, and I would be a very, very lost soul. Go ahead and end this one with the prayer. Lord, thank you for your love and mercy. I need both every day. I never want to take this part of your character for granted. Instead, I will thank you for it each and every day. For without your desire to reach down and extend your hand of mercy, I would be forever sunk. Amen. Where do you guys feel like you need mercy in your lives? I'd love to hear about it in the comments.